So a lot of us are on a budget. I know I am, and we need to buy parts, good parts that don't cost an arm and a leg. This is what is made by a company called Speedmaster. It's an Amazon company based out of California and Australia, believe it or not. They do, you might want to call it substandard, you might want to call it whatever you are. All we have here is an intake manifold from that group. It is comparable in many ways. I'm not saying it's the same at any, and don't know the flow rates. I don't know the ins and outs of this manifold, but it looks almost like an AFR manifold. For those of you who are familiar, the differences that I saw in the castings were the two front ports for heater hoses and such are up, whereas the AFR is sideways. You still have the air gap manifold style underneath. This is a pure casting. You can tell because it has casting flash all over it, and that's probably the difference between the AFR and this manifold is everything on it is really rough. You've got so overall inexpensive manifold with a little bit of cleanup, and I am going to clean it up. This could be a really good manifold for a low entry level price. Like I said, you just have to do the difference of the work, meaning you're going to have to sand a little bit and grind a little bit off to make it pretty. But overall, it's a good piece. Same with the heads. Went through the heads. Same situation. A little bit of flashing, flash casting. Not a lot on the heads. It looks like they cleaned those up a little bit. But we'll get into that more when I bring out the heads and start working on them. But for now, I'm going to start sanding on this and see if I can't get this thing to shine. Once I get it to shine, I'll start porting it to match the heads. Just want to be really careful because you don't know how much material they didn't use on this system. But a lot of it is, like you can see in the intake runner, there is a lot of garbage. That'll cause a disruption in flow. So you definitely want to clean them up. I can't see really down that port, but you can pretty much see there's a lot of garbage on the side wall of this one. It's a very bumpy, I guess you'd call it. And then the same over here. This one's a little bit better. It's almost like they machined this a little more, or just did a better job over here than they did over here. But yeah, you see a lot of garbage in here. So overall, it'll need to be cleaned up. There's no doubt about that. Flipping it over, you can see in the ports a little bit better there. They're relatively clean, but sure could use a quick touch up. Here's your steam ports, I guess you'd call, or your water ports, and those will have to be plumbed if you're running it. Looking down at this one, you can see the little bit of garbage that's in there. So a good cleaning would probably make this head perform, or this intake manifold perform better. And then port matching it to their heads would be the best way to do it. There's their web address upside down, www.speedmaster.com or speedmaster79.com, and then it's part number 1-147-007. Fill you in more on it as I go through, but that kind of gives you an outline on what it is. Like I say, it's not a bad piece. Seems to fit well. Just remember that the heads are 23 degrees, so you will have to measure for push rods before you put them in. But like I said, I'll cover more of that when I get there. I'll even show you how to measure for the push rods, but that'll kind of give you a good idea. So I've had my die grinder for quite some time, forever and ever ago. Amazon I bought for $34. They call it an engine porting kit, I guess you'd say. And it comes with two of the inserts. It comes with 240 grit cone shaped. It comes with 80 grit, both cone shaped and square, or round I should say. So you get, depending upon what areas you're working on in your ports, you've got both different sizes. And then of course you've got the medium grade, which is the 120, both in the round rolls and then the pointed rolls. You get about, let's see, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags of the 120. There's roughly 6 in each bag. On the 80, you get 1, 2, 3, 4 bags. There's roughly 5 in every bag, so that's 20. Okay, as I was saying before, I was interrupted by the phone. A couple of 240s. Found another 120 that I dropped on the floor. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bags of 120. Mainly because you're going to use a lot more of the 120 and the 80 grit than normal. You get 1, 2, 3, 4 bags of the 80 grit. 80 grit you're going to use if it's really, really, really rough. There are some areas that, at least in here, that I'm seeing that are rough, and I will need to hit them with 80 grit. But for the most part, you're going to be 120 big time. It doesn't cut really, I mean, it cuts fast, but it doesn't cut so fast that, not like the 80 grit. You're just going into this and knocking out imperfections. This is not for racing, this is for the street use, so it doesn't have to be fully polished. I mean, if you want to go nuts and do it, go ahead, but it's really not going to serve you any purpose on the streets at all. Not really, not unless you're street racing, and we all know that you shouldn't be doing that. Die grinder, you can pick these up at Harbor Freight relatively cheap. I like their air tools. Make sure you oil them, mainly because if they wear out, I can buy another one. I burned through 2 DAs already sanding on my car, and what's cool is they cost, you know, 40, 50 bucks. You just chuck it in the trash and get a new one. Way cheaper than buying, you know, if you're only doing one car, you know, maybe 2, you really don't need to buy anything really expensive unless you're crazy. The only expensive parts that I've bought are hard parts. My crank, my rods, my push rods, you know, a lot of that stuff, because it's a street car, you know, the bottom end of my motor is basically bulletproof. I could probably put, you know, 1,000 horsepower through it without any real trouble, naturally blown or something. But I don't plan to, but I built it so that it could handle horsepower. So cleaning these out just makes it smoother for the gas to get through, a lot easier, and makes life way, you know, makes it really, really nice. I am going to port match them to the heads. That's where your 80 grit and your actually you're gonna use cutters more than anything for that. But once again, you got to be very, very careful, especially if it's your first time doing this. If it's your first time doing it, I wouldn't use this. I would grab 80 grit sandpaper, 120 grit sandpaper, and just sand. Until you understand how fast the material moves, don't go in there with this thing, because this thing will remove material. No matter what that grit is, it's going to remove material fast. And that is the last thing you need, is to blow through one of these, blow through a water chamber up here, blow through something, you know, then you basically make this thing trash, or you got to take it out and have it welded, because it's cast. It's not going to be as strong. So, you know, when you're doing this stuff, just be really, really careful. Once you got the hang of it, you know, I would say take this die grinder and go find a piece of aluminum or steel, maybe an old set of heads. I think I've got a pair in the back of the truck that are just sitting there rusting. Practice with those until you get a really good feel for things. if you're using steel. If you're using aluminum, grab some scrap aluminum. I've got a couple of like angle braces. I could actually just go in on the face of them and run a little bit to see how quick it takes material off, but it gives you the feel so you don't kill it.